Jimmy Broadbent, aka Two Sheds, Jimmer, Bam Binton, Jamble Wanglebork, Shedboy, and Shed Sheeran, is easily one of my favorite YouTubers out there. Not only is his content great, but his progress in life is, what I believe to be at least, what keeps so many people coming back and invested in the story.
Hello everybody, it's Jimmy here.
Starting his channel in May of 2012, Jimmy focused on a genre of games that not many people were exposed to at the time. Now, I guess I should give a short explanation to those who aren't familiar with sim racing.
Who are you people?
As the name suggests, it's racing games whose primary goal is to replicate real life as closely as possible. It's the same principle as flight sims, but better. Games in the genre are titles like R-Factor 2, iRacing, Assetto Corsa, and more. These were games that Jimmy found his niche in. Like many other YouTubers at the time, Jimmy's early videos were in the Let's Play style, sort of numbered episodes documenting his progression through various sims, mostly R-Factor 2 and iRacing. Now, unlike other small YouTubers in that sphere, Jimmy's videos weren't only commentary-less clips or extended unedited sections of gameplay. Instead, they were lively and informative, with Jimmy, while racing, usually going over his strategy and real-time thoughts throughout the race, planning his overtakes, highlighting his mistakes.
I'm a bit wide there and I nearly looked at him, but...
And ultimately going for the win, or doing his best to get close.
My reason for buying the GT is I go wide there. Watch out for the contact of his other solstice. I'm going to try and run him around, keep my position.
Keep to the right.
He's got it in the right gear, I think. I shouldn't be in third, but there's not much else I can do at the moment. And he backs out, he has to back out. Good for me. You know how it is. Like I said to you, look, I try and be a clean racer and I try and stay out of trouble and I end up in these situations. Commentary at the same time as racing doesn't help, but gotta make the monies. That's a complete lie. I earn no money whatsoever from this channel.
For those who didn't have a sim rig or were still getting into it overall, Jimmy was already showing himself to be a great example, as well as a good source of information and entertainment. Beyond just the racecraft though, there was Jimmy as a personality. Like I said before, he wasn't a commentary-less channel. He, as the racer, is the content ultimately. I mean, his legal first and last name is also the channel name, so it's kind of a given. As such, Jimmy wasn't, and still isn't, afraid to let his personal life shine through in his videos, whether it's good times or bad times.
I am far from the person that I used to be.
In 2015, Jimmy uploaded a video titled Channel Update. In it, he explained that the idea of making videos wasn't as interesting as it was in the past, and that he now preferred things like streaming instead.
But frankly, it's sort of the point now where the idea of making a video in my current state of mind, as we get onto the green stuff there on the exit, it's just not very appealing to me, basically. I'm not enjoying doing it.
I mean, looking back, he's very honest with himself. Topics like videos that he didn't think were up to snub, or his Patreon creation, which, I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but there used to be a time where people didn't like when YouTubers had a Patreon, thought it was greedy. Times changed, huh? All of the personal updates and hard times would eventually culminate in Jimmy's self-described low point, in a video titled 2016, The Worst Year of My Life.
For me, 2016 started in a deep depression. My mind reached a level of impulsiveness that I've not experienced beforehand or since then. Inevitably, obviously, I lost my job. I started to harm myself, be it through these horrendous outbursts of blind rage where I'd almost come to from it. Anything that wasn't booze, coffee or a cigarette didn't pass my lips for 3 months. Aside from the occasional boiled sweet to keep the longing of food under control, but nothing substantial. As you can imagine, that lifestyle only really has one end, and it happened. I collapsed, passed out in our bathroom of all places. But I can't stress enough though how positive things like exercise and talking to people can be if you feel that bad all the time. You can't sit there and you can't just be this loner, this hermit. I am far from the person that I used to be before all this started. I kind of think that he doesn't exist anymore. You know, he wouldn't do things like try and fix up a car or, you know, try and expand social circles, any of that. He would sit and he would moan and he would do nothing about it. And as much as I still have these darker moments where when nothing I can think of is enough to sate that, that feeling of despair, I have moments now, I have happy moments of satisfaction, and times where I can feel proud of things that I've done, which is something that I've not felt for a very long time.
But despite all this, he still didn't quit or give up. This is also the time when the shed arc began, as Jimmy would now move to the shed behind his family's home, which would become the new headquarters for all of his future YouTube videos.
Jimmy here, and welcome back to real life.
Not long after the 2016 video, Jimmy would begin streaming on YouTube rather than Twitch, and showing off games like Gran Turismo.
Excuse me. Come on!
When talking about this again, Jimmy himself said that this stream helped propel him further and further into his uploads, reaching the point where his channel surpassed 10K, a clear sign of things to come.
I remember how insane it was, also how toxic the chat was. I was not ready. I was not ready.
Within the following year, Jimmy got his first sponsor, a nicer setup, and would start to make outings at real racetracks again. Of course, Jimmy's sim content would still continue as well, which is around the time when I discovered him. Coincidentally, the same time when Jimmy dedicated himself full-time to content creation. I remember seeing this thumbnail pop up on my suggested feed. See, I'm a simple man. I see a 962, and I click the video. Easy. But of course, it wasn't actually a real 962. But even still, I still stuck around. I mean, the immediacy of the video and the racing skill that Jimmy had on display kept me watching. And in fact, it had me on edge for most of it, if I'm being honest with you, with very close, very hard racing.
I'll be inside. That's how we're going to come back strong, though. Push it off to the side, Dead. 10th up and 2. 4th, nice. Nice start. No, that's 5th. Car gets the chicane wrong, off he goes. Right, okay, now up to 3rd place on the podium. This is a physical experience. Rebecca wide. Rebecca in the... Oh my god! Rebecca disconnects, I think. That Sal was really fast in a straight line, so it's going to lose me up the hill. Purposely didn't take the carousel there. Oh, missed a gear. I don't think it's enough. Nothing I could do. Nothing I could do against that Sauber in a straight line. I'm sweating after that.
Videos of his single races on Assetto Corsa or his longer form stream highlights and iRacing segments were, and still are, my bread and butter for content. That and the classic Nürburgring Challenge videos. I highly recommend that even if you haven't seen his older content, you still go back and check it out. And of course, watch the new stuff too. It's still very good. Around the same time as those videos, a few more significant events would take place for Jimmy. The first is his surpassing of EmptyBox, another popular sim YouTuber at the time. Again, another mark of his ever-growing progress. His second being the turbocharging of his MX-5, a car that would come to help kickstart the motorsports career. An instrumental first step, so to speak. And then there were more of his videos becoming viral successes, like his How to Get Started in Sim Racing. I would argue that videos like these and his earlier My Most Intense Online Race helped to popularize sim racing broadly. Apparently, the people at Gran Turismo agreed with this, since they ended up reaching out to Jimmy to do commentary on their upcoming championships. Another first happened in 2019 when Broadbent would get the opportunity to drive an actual race car, a McLaren 570S GT4 to be specific. He'd also get a chance to drive a rally car in the same month as well. As you can probably tell by now, Jimmy's once infrequent IRL videos were now becoming a more prominent part of his channel, something that his subscribers, myself included, endorsed wholeheartedly. But of course, he would still upload sim racing content as a primary source of videos. These, though, would be broken up with significant IRL events. Kinda like this one. Over the next few months, Jimmy's real-life racing career began in earnest as well, starting with an endurance race in karting and taking classes at a racing school, to finishing P3 in that series and driving around a Radical. But unfortunately, the lockdowns in 2020 put a pause to a lot, including most amateur racing series. Not to worry though, as the racing would inevitably resume again in the future. By February of 2021, things had, for the most part, returned to normal. Racing was back, and along with it, another announcement from Jimmy. One bigger and more important than any of his before.
But then I got a phone call around middle of last year from a man named Mark Harrison, big boss man at Praga Cars here in the UK. So we chatted for a while on the phone, and basically, well, the end result was this.
It was a well-kept secret, but the cat was out of the bag now, and everyone anticipated his first season in a bona fide race car. In between outings in the MX-5 and participation in winter endurance races, Jimmy would test and train vigorously with the Praga until the moment of truth, his first race. In April of 2021, Jimmy had his first official Praga race, which went great. Throughout the race, Jimmy's racecraft was on full display, doing well to avoid accidents and outperform most of the field. He would end up capping the race off in P4 just outside the podium. A great result, to say the least. The season, however, would not continue for the team without issues, as a transmission problem would end one of their races prematurely, followed again by a poor tire choice in the next one. But thankfully, that wasn't enough to finish their session, and Jimmy ended up coming home in 5th place, and 6th overall. A good result, all things considered. But things would turn around here for Jimmy at Donington Park. There, Jimmy would stand on the top step of the podium for the first time with Praga. Oh, and right before all this too, Jimmy would finally leave his shed-dwelling status behind and get a house of his own. Truly the American dream, but in Britain. 2021 was, overall, a very good year for Jimmy, and his channel and his career, but it would pale in comparison to what was to come.
Oh mate, that was rad.
He started off 2022 by beating Max Verstappen's team in the Le Mans Digital 24 Hours, and then, right afterwards, got himself every 13-year-old's dream, a Mark IV Supra. And, granted, it wasn't in the best shape, but it's not like that can't be fixed, right?
Well, if you want to part with several times what it's worth, we'll finish it for you. It's not a problem.
Right, guys, the GoFundMe going up right now. We'll sort that out.
And hey, look, I'm as much of a fan of the Supra as anyone else, but I think his upcoming season with Praga would sort of overshadow the Toyota a bit. The season had a very interesting start for Team 87. In the first race, an incident with another car tapping Jimmy sent him spinning, eventually retiring the car due to a rear right tie rod being bent. It was made even worse, too, by the fact that there was only 5 minutes left in the race. In May, Team 87 would head to Snetterton, where they would have a dominant showing, with a win in the first race of the weekend. But, again, problems would surface with the car's turbo, disqualifying them after the fact. A huge blow, but Jimmy and the team seemed to have the, mentality, and since then, dominated the rest of the weekend, racking up most of the points for the championship. I mean, honestly, they just kept on winning and winning from there, and before you knew it, and I mean, where else can you go from here but up, really, right? You could finish off the year testing for BMW Motorsports, but why stop there, right? Just race the thing. Fuck it. Just race one.
I think race is going to be, hopefully, fairly chill.
For 2023, Jimmy was set to officially race at his favorite track, the Nürburgring.
This year, we'll be working on getting our permit by racing in something in RCN, so we can go on to race in NLS, with the goal of tackling the N24 itself in 2024.
With the goal set, Jimmy got to work putting in the hours and getting his license. And before long, it was race day again. Yet again, the first few races weren't the easiest. There was a spin in the inaugural session and another DNF right after, but when the time came for a 6-hour endurance race, the team went the distance, securing a 5th place finish. much to the chagrin of the race-worn 330i though. From then on, Jimmy continued to race the 330 while also testing his future M4 GT4, scoring good points but no wins. That was until April of 2024 when he and his team finally bagged a win at the Nürburgring. It was a well-deserved victory, especially after coming back from a puncture that could have easily ended it all. But now, the stage was set for the final test, the 24-hour. As the title of this video suggests, not much went well for Bilstein and the team during the race. With bits of rain coming down early, the circuit was already wet and overcast. Add to that a 90-second stop-and-go time penalty they had to serve, and you can start to see the uphill battle they had ahead of them. Still, Jimmy and crew were in good spirits, especially after bringing the car back to P3 in class, all the way from 7th. When it was time for Jimmy to take his seat, he really went to work chipping away at the leader's gap, getting into second place and gaining. By nightfall though, the rain had gotten worse and worse. It was decided that the race would continue the following morning after conditions had cleared. However, once the next day came, a heavy fog had made it nearly impossible to continue. So, Jimmy's first Nürburgring 24 would end behind a safety car, but in P2 in his class. A bit of a disappointment since they didn't get the chance to fight for the lead. Still, P2 was a good finish. After all, P1 will still be there waiting for them next year. And now, well, we're pretty much caught up to the current day. Jimmy's channel is still thriving and his real-life racing career is still very much alive. Though, in a video he posted going over his whole career, he did address a few things, particularly his view on sim racing and where he sees his channel going. In short, the joy he once felt for sim racing is somewhat faded away, especially after 2020. Regardless, I don't see Jimmy stopping sim racing totally. If anything, he will continue to make his real-life racing career a bigger part of his channel, which, again, I think his fans support. And should, honestly. I mean, this is what he worked so hard to do after all, to go from the simulator to the real world, and that's exactly what he's accomplished. So, enjoy it. I encourage Jimmy to do whatever brings him and his growing family happiness. Special thanks to Jimmy as well for letting me use his clips for this. It took me a while to finally get to the point where I actually felt like I was ready to make it, but I'm glad to finally spread the word of the Shed Boy. Coincidentally enough, while I'm finishing this edit too, I can see that someone has also done the same. Their video is a bit more in-depth on some things, so if you want to learn even more about Jimmy, then I recommend you check theirs out as well. Links will be in the description. Anyways, thanks for watching, check out the channel and subscribe if you enjoyed.